Another
Best,
intro, John.
best intro in all.
We are
of
all shamrocked out today. So just to let you all know, after you watch this show, you're going to have to run to McDonald's and get yourself a shamrock shake, right? But I'm here with my co-host, good old John here, and we have a special guest today. First off, it's St. Patty's Day. So, man, it's all Irish and all luck all day and all green. So props to everybody over in Ireland. But our special guest today is Beth Wood, straight from Columbus, Ohio, Buckeye Land. Go Buckeyes, right, Beth?
Sure, you bet.
That's right. So we're just going to deep dive into it, Beth. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and what's going on in your career right now.
Okay. Well, I have about a 20-year career in higher education administration, working in colleges all those years as an academic dean, director of ed, faculty. And so that is where I first got my recruiting experience, if you will. Perhaps not in the actual recruiting business as a recruiter, but of course I had to build teams and I experienced the life cycle that we do as recruiters all of those years, the searching, vetting, hiring, the whole thing, and got a lot of experience doing that. And I actually enjoyed that part of my job the most out of everything that I had to do. So it was kind of only a natural move for me to go into recruiting per se. And I started my business officially about 5.5 months ago. And I am a sole proprietor.
Good for you.
It's called Expert Recruiting Solutions. And I wanted to choose a name that reflected what I do. I don't consider myself to be an expert, but I consider myself to do expert recruiting, if you will. And I do put a lot of emphasis on urgency and making sure that we match that candidate with the employer's needs, because I know how important that is as a former hiring manager myself. And not only did I recruit, but I also worked with recruiters over the years to fill positions on my team and my colleges, and they placed me over the years. So I've kind of worked in all the different aspects of recruiting and with recruiters, and have a great respect for the industry. So right now,
both sides.
I'm sorry.
So you've seen both sides. You've been on both sides of the desk, so to speak.
Man.
Yep. And now I am the recruiter. So
Right.
I hope to make a success. And I think with working with colleagues like yourselves and the others on the call, the live show today, I think, just getting advice from everyone, because I'm still learning. I'm learning what it means to have a business for the first time. And I became an LLC, for what that's worth.
You're official.
Nice. You are official.
That
So
just
I
means
guess,
you can claim lots of tax deductions, Beth.
Yeah, and I'm getting my EIN number so I can get my business bank account, by the way. So
That's right.
That's
Well,
next.
welcome to the staffing family now, right, John? We can welcome her into the American staffing family.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me today too, Rich.
No, that's awesome. So I love how, John, real quick, she has both sides. You know what I mean? She can relate on that. Is there any feedback, John, from both sides you want to talk about real quick on that end?
Well, it's interesting because there's plenty of people who have gone from being a hiring manager to becoming a recruiter. So as a hiring manager, I'm sure, Beth, you've seen some things that you've liked and not liked about recruiters, which I imagine has influenced the type of recruiter that you are and will become.
Yes, I have. I mean, I've seen the lazy recruiters. Don't want to be that. How do you make money like that, right? They're not going to come to you on a silver platter, that's for sure.
No, they don't stick around very long.
I've learned a lot from both the good and the bad.
Sure. Sure. What are some of the, just briefly, what stood out in your mind as far as when you say from the good and the bad? On the good side, the recruiters that made a favorable impression on you when you were hiring, what did they do differently than the ones that weren't so good?
Well, that's a good question. I think looking back on all of the experiences I've had in that field, probably the ones that displayed that sense of urgency and that relationship building, that getting to know me and what I need, not just on paper, send me the job order. You have to really read between the lines with that. You have to tell me what's not on that job order. I like recruiters that ask me about cultural fit, for example. That's Sometimes it's on the job order, but not very often that I've seen personally. But I think that's an important part, of the searching, of the hiring process, certainly.
I couldn't agree more. It's funny, to your point, there's a lot of recruiters that just throw a lot of paper out there and see what sticks. And they're just, gee, the job order requires this, the person has that, gee, must be a fit, and out they go. The ones that tend to stick around, to your point, it's important to take time to figure out, because again, if you're a good recruiter, anybody that you put in front of a client should technically be capable to do the job. What comes down to it, though, is, if I put five candidates in front of you, they're all capable of doing the job. What comes down to it is, who do you get along with best and who blends in best with your culture? And those are the things you just mentioned that really make the ultimate difference and tends to yield itself to more retention and longer term employment for those that you place, which is what everybody wants anyway.
Absolutely.
You guys are totally right. You're totally right on that. And I think with bigger companies, it's all about trying to get them in and get them quick. 2-minute conversations. You should never limit yourself to how many minutes you're going to be on the conversation with somebody,
Agreed.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Because to Beth's point, and Richard, you and I have talked about this before, it's all about getting to know the person as a person. Not as a candidate, not as a fee, not as a piece of paper, but what makes them tick as a person, what's important to them, and then bringing them opportunities that make sense for them. And same thing on the client side. What's important to the client? What are they looking for? What do they have to have? What would they like to have? And what type of person do they want? And just,
Right.
if you listen and deliver,
listen,
that makes life a lot better.
And
Yeah.
what's amazing about that is when you listen and they see that you appreciate them and give them respect, you're getting referral after referral. They're calling all their friends and saying,
Absolutely.
this is just not a recruiter. This is somebody who cares about me. And there it goes. Your pipeline just goes boom, right up.
Agreed.
Yes. I agree with that 100%. And then likewise on the candidate side, I always like to interview my candidates quite well when they find me and ask me to find them a good placement. Tell me what's not on that resume. What don't I see? Because a resume to me is just a piece of paper. I mean, like you said, John, it tells their credentials, their requirements, and we certainly can't negate that because it's very important. However, I like to get to know them, and my first question when I do my initial phone screening is, tell me about yourself, and that leaves it wide open. Some of them will talk about their entire resume from back in 1995, right? And some of them will talk about their children and their family. And
that's great.
And this is where I live. These are my hobbies. And it's great. I just listen, like you say, Rich. It's so important to let them know that you care. You care about not just them as a candidate, but them as a person.
Exactly. And if you engage, and they like baseball cards like I do, then I engage. Then we have a conversation about that for a minute or two. Right then, they're becoming part of your family.
You like baseball cards, Richard? You collect baseball cards, Richard?
Yes, I do.
I just learned something new about you. Good man.
Yeah, me and Gary V are big on baseball cards.
Yes, indeed. Gary V is a big, I cringe every time I think of the shoe boxes full of baseball cards that I had as a kid, and just somewhere along the way, they just got thrown out. I'm sure there was money in there. I missed out.
Probably. She had Mickey Mantle's rookie card, I can guarantee you.
Yeah,
oh,
really.
Boy.
What's interesting, though? The better recruiters, and I'm sure you guys would agree with this, what you were just talking about, Beth, they take the time to get to know their candidates, because there are some really good candidates that cannot write a resume. And there are some not so good candidates that write great resumes. And it's our job to kind of figure that out on behalf of the companies that we serve. And I mean, in all my years of recruiting, never once did I send out a resume that was given to me. I always had to enhance it with the candidate, never misrepresenting, but positioning them in the best light to help their career and to help their chances for getting an interview and ultimately a job transition. But never once did I send out a resume that I didn't do something to make it better, because it's our job to bring that stuff out and incorporate it so that we can convey that to whoever we're trying to place them with.
And that's so true, John, because we put bullet points, like what I do in any bullet points of why this candidate should be decided. You should make a decision on this person. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to sell them just like they're part of our team. And that's what they are. They are part of our team.
Well,
They
it's all
work
about
with them,
yeah, it's
really.
it's all about what's important to the other
Yeah.
person. So when you're talking to the prospective employer, it's what does this person do for you? What does this person bring to the
Mhm.
table beyond their skills? So what have they done prior? That quantifiable achievement type of stuff. And on the candidate side is, what does this opportunity do for you? And that's the mindset. I think too many times there's a lot of people in our industry, and again, for this I say thank you because it's easy for people like us to differentiate. There's a lot of people that don't put that amount of care into it. They're just trying to
Exactly.
match on paper and just mass mailing, mass emailing, which is what we're going to talk about also, and just throwing stuff out there and seeing if they get lucky. And that's just it's not boding well for long-term success, in my opinion.
You're totally right. And right now, if you can't write a resume, call one of us. There's video resumes. If you're good in front of a camera for a minute or two, you can give yourself every chance. And John knows this already. Video is the way to go, man. Video killed the radio star. Video resumes are taking off. I'm telling you, across the country. In a minute
Scary
and a
that
half,
we all got that reference, Richard.
boom. Yeah, we're a little bit old, right? The MTV era, right? Actually, that was the first song ever on MTV, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Really? I didn't know that.
First video ever. Yep.
Good trivia.
Awesome. So let's jump into our topic for the day. I love how we just do the freestyle chat, and get all the different subjects. But our main topic today is recruiters' communication. Why? And we have three of them. John's going to lead into it, and then we'll just chime in here. But it's so important, recruiters, to listen to this because there's three different ways, and you have to hit them all from different avenues.
You do. Obviously, there's texting, there's emailing, and oh, by the way, there's the telephone, which seems to get lost in all this transition. So, open forum. When you talk to folks, what are your guidelines as far as what do you guys tell people as far as how are you going to communicate with your candidates? How are you going to communicate with your clients?
I think with texting seems to be the thing. Everybody's texting, no matter what. I tend to be careful with that, and here's why. I always ask my clients and my candidates, is it okay if I text you? But that's after we build the relationship. I would never text somebody like that out of the blue. This is after emails have gone back and forth, which of course should be your primary, I think, initial way to contact them. It's more professional, it's more business-like. And then you would always ask permission. Is it okay to text you? I don't know how you guys feel about that, but that's just kind of a personal philosophy of mine.
I tend to not disagree with you on that. It's interesting. Part of my mindset changed over the last few years, and I'll tell you why. I'm the same way. For me personally, I am not going to send someone a text that I don't know and have never spoken to before. That's just me, because I wouldn't want to get a random text from someone that I didn't know. You get that telephone number. You're like, who's this? What do you want? I don't know. You swipe left, delete, gone. So that's just my personal comfort level. Yeah. However, I think it also depends on the vertical you recruit in. So in my past life, did lots of professional recruiting and accounting and IT and some other professional lines of business. I would never have texted without getting their permission first. And usually it's after that first conversation, asking them, well, how do you like to be communicated with? And then we kind of outline and set the game plan and set the expectations, which I think is also very important in any case. Yeah. Once I transitioned into healthcare recruiting, I learned that nurses, for example, which is the lion's share of our business, what we do at Health Trust Workforce Solutions, nurses are more receptive to text, whether they know you or not, simply because they're on a hospital floor, and it's a lot easier for them to just look at a text than to check email or return a call in the heat of the moment. Now, that being said, I still would be awkward sending someone a text that I did not know. So my line of attack is always, and I was talking to Richard about this a little bit before the show, you've got to do more than one. So I might leave you a voicemail and say, hey, I also have your number from years ago. I'm also going to send you a text in addition to leaving the message here on the voicemail, or sending them an email and then sending them a text, kind of using multiple mediums at the same time, acknowledging the other medium that you've used so it doesn't come out of the blue. And that way they might listen to their voicemail and say, oh, that's who that text was from. So it depends on your vertical. You have to know your industry and know what's going to hit. If if the person is in your ATS from years gone by and you've got a mobile number, that's a little bit warmer than someone who has never interacted with your company. So there are exceptions to every rule, but by and large, Beth, I agree with you. I'm not personally comfortable sending a text to someone who I've never met unless it's a referral and then I'm referencing the referral, that type of thing. So,
all right. You ready for my answer?
Bring it.
Texting. For light industrial, I'll leave them a voicemail. A lot of times they don't even have their voicemail set up. I send them a text, say, hey, I'm Richard Staffy Shark. I have a job opportunity for you. Within a minute or two, I'm getting response after response. So in my vertical of light industrial, texting 100% all the way. A lot of people don't have their voicemail set up. A lot of people don't check their voicemail. I've realized that, there's a lot of people out there that says, oh, it's with the voicemail. I don't check my voicemail much at all, or it's full. So that texting part, I think we're breaking that barrier, to be honest with you. If anybody applied for a job with me and I'll text them and say, hey, you applied for a job on Indeed, Facebook, or something like that. And identify yourself. I think that's the biggest thing. Identify yourself, who you are. And that's the thing. Just don't say I have a job opportunity for you. I mean, I get them myself sometimes. People say, trying to recruit me as a nurse. I'm like, I'm not a nurse.
It's a really
got my name.
It's a really good point to make is be clear in your communication. I agree with you. Don't just, don't send a link to a job and nothing else, so be clear. And I totally agree with that, Richard.
Yes. And then put your at wherever you're at Staffy Shark, John's company, so they can look it up real quick, know you're legit, and go from there. But I mean, I have so many conversations through texting. And then once I get the candidate halfway through the process, I tell them either call me, text me, or email me, what we're all going to talk about today. You have all three avenues you can reach me out at any given time. And they like that because some people just don't want to talk on the phone all the time. They'd rather shoot you a quick text for a simple answer of something.
That okay. You just hit on something very key that I totally subscribe to. Quick answer. So I think it's important that recruiters realize what medium to use for what purpose. So if I want a quick answer, if I want a yes, no, can you interview tomorrow at 1:00? Did you get my email? Stuff like that. When, can we talk tomorrow at 6, whatever. Those are easy yes, no. That's a very effective medium to use for that, meaning texting. If I am going to, I shouldn't be sending you a text where you have to scroll through screens and screens of your phone to read. I say there should be a no scrolling rule on text. Everything I say should be boom right there. With email, all right, if I'm going to send you any type of attachment or document, then that's the medium. But same thing, the body of my email, you shouldn't have to scroll to read it. It should be short and to the point, especially if it's initial outreach. I was just counseling a recruiter the other day. Their initial outreach, with the email that they would send someone very first time, gave way too much information without knowing the person. So all of a sudden, I'm sending you this initial email that tells you everything that my company does, that my opportunity has, the benefits, the perks. I don't even know you yet. So again, you've got to know your audience and know that you've got to earn the right to have those types of discussions. Right. And that initial outreach, if it's in an email, boom, that's it. But if I need to send you first day instructions or information about a company or an application, all right, email's good for that.
Yeah.
Even when all that takes place, once I have that initial conversation with the candidate and we get to know each other, I think the expectation has to be set that, hey, I know you want me to text you. I'll do that. That's fine. There's going to be times where we have to talk on the phone.
Yes. Yeah.
So if I text you and say, need to talk, I won't call you unless we need to talk and it's important to you. So setting that expectation that, hey, I'm okay with that, but I'm not just going to communicate electronically. Otherwise, there's no way to build a relationship.
You're totally right on it.
And also to add to that, John, the fact is I just got off the phone right before the show with a potential client and another college. And she and I had a really good conversation whereby she was able to ask me questions as soon as I stated about my fees or about my guarantee or whatever. And it wasn't this email back and forth that, sometimes gets lost in the shuffle, right? So she said, I really appreciate that we could talk today. She said this to me, as opposed to just getting this in an email from you. And I said, well, absolutely, anytime. I have no qualms about picking up the phone and, making sure they're available, obviously, and calling somebody to talk to them initially about the fees. I just think that phone call is just utterly important. There's no two ways about it. And fact of the matter is, after I get done with that initial phone call, I put everything in writing and send it to her.
Oh, perfect.
I even said that. I said, I'm going to summarize our conversation. And it takes time, but you know what? It pays off. Because
You know what?
they have that in writing. They can push it up to the decision maker to hire me.
Exactly.
And it's all taken care of. And you building that relationship from the get-go.
And to your point, I love that you did that. And that had to make you feel great when she acknowledged that and said, oh, I'm so glad we spoke.
It surprised me, but yeah, I didn't expect it. But it did.
Data studies still show that even with technology, both candidates and clients, they still want that human interaction with recruiters.
Human connection.
Yes, the connection. So, and I love the fact that you sent an email afterwards, and that holds so much more weight than just sending the email on its own and never talking to the person. Conversations like fee negotiations with a client or salary discussions with a candidate, that should never take place over email.
Never.
It's just it causes, and to your point, I call that email tennis. When you keep going back and forth, if you go back and forth more than 3 times, I say it's time to pick up the phone.
But we're in this day and age now, John, where John and Beth, you probably agree that nobody wants to pick up the phone anymore. We're still in that old school. A lot of people want to send out an email blast of candidates and say, well, I only got 2 responses. You still got to communicate. Like we said, we do the texting, but we hit all angles. You got to pick up the phone and talk to them too.
Well, and I don't know about you guys, but and again, we're not saying don't email. We're not saying don't text. We're not saying just use the phone. We're saying you've got to use all 3 strategically.
Mm-hmm.
And email blasts nowadays, I don't know if you've seen it, but they're not as effective. People want a little personalization to that email.
That's
and something you said, Beth, I've had a recruiter say to me recently, I send out mass emails. Well, what's your response rate? It's not that good. I'm like, shocker, you got to personalize it. And the response was, it takes too much time to personalize it. And I was like,
and effort too.
No, I said that's where you're wasting more time not doing it than investing the time in doing it.
I actually made that mistake when I first started my business. I built these long Excel spreadsheets, which is okay because I don't have an ATS yet, but I built it with campus presidents because that's my first niche. I built it with their phone numbers, their email addresses. It took a lot of time because, you have to look that up. I don't know if we're allowed to mention this. I use Leadleaper.
No,
it really does help me.
There's no limits here, Beth.
No limits.
I mean, what can I say? I don't work for them, but I don't get any pay. But it really helps most of the time. I mean, and I want the business email. I know it doesn't give personal email, but Leadleaper gives you the business email and usually the contact number. So that was easy. So through LinkedIn. But I found that I just sent mass emails after I built those Excel spreadsheets because it was fast. And I thought, the turnaround will be great. Zero. After hundreds of emails. I didn't personalize. So guess what? I calendared it to follow up and I had to make the calls because I made myself make those relatively cold calls, right? A lot of them didn't even get the email. What email?
Got caught in the spam.
Yeah. So the warm call became a cold call, but I always try to take those so-called cold calls and warm them up during the call. So it ends up becoming a warm call. That's how I look.
Well, and if I was going to reach out to you, for example, Beth, if I were going to send you an email, it would go a lot farther if I first addressed you by name and then referenced something about your background.
Right.
Hey, I'm very impressed with your years in academia. Curious to discuss how you've made the transition into recruiting. That to me, okay, John is reaching out to Beth directly versus, hi, Mr. or Mrs. Client. I provide, we get them all the time. I got one the other day. Someone was trying to connect with me on LinkedIn and their message was, we can find you the best candidates for your clients.
Oh,
and my response was, you don't even know me.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you know about my business? And they're like, well, not that much. I'm like, you're really hurting yourself. Right. So it's I think we're all in agreement that it's got it. The message today, we're in an age of uber personalization. The more personalized someone can feel like you're reaching out to them and not just mass emailing, the better your chances for connecting with that person and engaging with them.
Totally great. And some of the big things I think that are mistakes are like great opportunity. How do you know it's a great opportunity for everybody? You put this in a great opportunity, advancement. It's a temp to perm job. How are you going to get advancement? I mean, you have to really ask them questions and think, why are you putting this stuff in there? I mean, just to pull somebody in.
We do a lot of research on email communications and outreach because the data changes almost quarterly. And, when you send an email, your first step is, all right, what's my subject line say? Because that's what people are going to see. And are they going to open the email?
Exactly right.
Then when they open it, what's the text, what's the body of the email say? And will they respond? But the first step is that opening. And there's a lot of data out there on ways to improve that subject line that is important and that we've seen very effective. But recruiters have to switch it up because what I use today might not work in 3 months.
True.
So you're totally right. So like I always say, people in the industry for 20 years, 18 years of that's outdated. I'm sorry to say, but it's knowledge to take with you. But
what are you saying, Richard?
I'm not saying a word. I'm just saying we're moving very quickly in the staffing industry.
You have to adapt. You have to adapt. Yes, there are some fundamentals that never go away, but you have to adapt. The one thing that we can all count on is change, and you've got to be able to adapt and roll with it. Otherwise, you will get left behind.
That's right. Challenge equals change all the time, and adapt equals achieve. Remember them too. One thing I like to talk about, since we're on this subject, is timing. I recruit at nighttime. I text in the evening sometimes. On the weekends, I'm a weekend warrior. John probably agrees with this. From 10 o'clock to noon on a Saturday, it's amazing time to get a hold of clients and candidates. Because they're home with their kids. They got that break. They're getting their coffee before they go out to softball practice with their kids. I reach out to 9 people. I get about 8 on the phone.
Yeah.
What do you think, John, on a weekend?
I think you do what you have to do. And I think, again, you've got to try whatever is going to work. So, if I call people in the morning and I don't get them, I've got to try them in the evening. If I'm not getting them during the week, I got to try them on the weekend. I think a good recruiter is resourceful like that. So, hey, when I was working a desk, I always did that. I called people on the weekends. I had prep calls, debrief calls, interview calls on Saturdays or Sundays, whatever worked for them. Then I did that. But yeah, you've got to be resourceful, and you've got to be able to put yourself out there and say, all right, I'm going to try these different things. I can't just keep doing the same old and getting the same results, whether they be good, bad, or indifferent. So I'm okay with recruiters doing that. I got shocked. I get shocked when recruiters, when we talk about contacting candidates and they're like, well, I have no way of getting in touch with them. And I'm like, well, you have their name, right? Yeah. I'm like, you know where they work, right? Yeah. So call them at work. And the response is, can I do that? I'm like, that's recruiting. Like, yes, you can. Whatever it takes to get in touch with that person, that's our job. And if you believe in what you're doing, to your point, Richard, if you believe that you're bringing value to someone's career potentially, then you can make that call with confidence and you don't have to worry about it.
No, you're totally right.
Yeah, add to that, actually, John, that's a good point, because I know we're winding down to our time, but I want to throw this in.
There's no time, Beth. We're good. Keep going.
Because a lot of people on this call may have the same concern that I do personally, is I use LinkedIn religiously to source. That's not my only way, but that is a primary way. And I always worry when I'm sourcing for candidates about sending an email that I get through LeadLeap or to their work email, because that's typically what it gives me. I hardly ever see personal emails that way. So, I've never had anybody email me back and say, or get back with me through LinkedIn and say, please don't do this again. I don't want my employer to know or think that I'm looking for another job. And, I worry about that, though. So I don't know if anybody else on the call has those concerns. John and Rich, if you want to chime in on that. But I try to send LinkedIn connection messages almost all the time. That way it doesn't interfere with, using their work email or making them mad or whatever. And these are candidates. We don't want to make them upset with us either, right? So what do you guys think about that?
I'll jump in first. I love reaching out to people at work. And here's what I do. I say right here, and I can send you the template too. I highlighted it. Do you know anybody with your credentials, looking for a job? Bingo. All that does is you're not sourcing for them. You're sourcing for somebody else. And guess what? Well, I might be interested. Before I tell my friend or coworker, tell me about it. Yeah. Right there at that point, you're not stealing at a candidate. You just open it up for professional networking to pass the word. And it works all the time.
I like that.
I agree. And to your point, Beth, I love LinkedIn. I've been on the platform really since it hit the market back in 2004, and it's wonderful. When I reach out to folks on LinkedIn, I always personalize the connect message. And from a recruiting standpoint, what I've always said is, are you open to a brief networking conversation? And rarely have I ever had that turned down, because it is a networking site and people should be open to that. And usually it is. And also, if you send someone, like, again, I think you got to deal with the resources you have. If all you have is a work email, I think it's fine to send. Acknowledge in the work email, hey, I hope I'm not overstepping my bounds by sending this to your work. Okay. However, here's the reason for why I'm reaching out.
Exactly.
If they want to engage with you, they'll call you and say, okay, in the future, use this email.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let them dictate. But I think you're fine. You're just doing your job.
Yeah. Hope so.
Yeah.
No fear at all. Go for it 100%. But just send a generic email to them saying we have a great opportunity in the title line. That's not good. I mean, you're going to get spammed all the time. Probably the company's going to just block you.
Wow. That's what I worry about. I don't want them to interpret it as spam. I'll usually put in my email because, I'm pretty gregarious and, fantastic opportunity in sunny, warm Florida, So something to draw their attention, right? So,
and
you're drawing my eye right now, Beth. Where's that position at?
Right?
John's already in Florida.
Already there.
John's already
there's
there.
a couple in Florida right now, actually almost getting ready to be placed. These are split fee situations, though, so they're not my own, but I still enjoy helping other recruiters. By the way, I think it's a great way to earn experience and get better at our talent and what we do.
When you have a team of recruiters that are working together, most of your deals are going to be split, but you'll do more deals together and you'll end up making more money than trying to do it on your own. At least that's my opinion.
I can see that. happening.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many avenues here we can go with this. I mean, it's besides the time limits and stuff like that, how many emails? I mean, I know there's certain people who say they have to reach out to 100 candidates a week. John, I'm not a fan of, I know you have to reach out to so many. What's your take on all these numbers and all this stuff that big staffing firms have for these recruiters?
Oh, Richard, I'm glad you asked, because as it turns out, one of the talks I'm submitting for consideration for this year's staffing world is on that topic of metrics, because metrics should not be about the what, it should be about the why. Mm-hmm. So if I tell my recruiters, you got to do 150 dials. Okay, why? They've got to understand why they're going to do it, especially for the newer recruiters. If I just tell them to do something, if I say, you got to send 100 emails. All right, so I make a mass email of 100. I hit my metric, but I really didn't care or put any effort into it. So I really didn't maximize my efficiency. They have to understand why they're doing it and why you're asking them to do it at the level that you're asking them to do it. I always tell folks, from a manager perspective, if you make 10 calls and tell me what's going right and what's going wrong, that's not a big data subset. If you make 1,000 calls, then I kind of see patterns and I can help you grow and get over the hurdles that you're repeatedly encountering. So from a management perspective, we should use the metrics not just to say, okay, my team hit their numbers, but we have to dive into it. So if you're sending 100 emails and you're getting no responses, then I need to look into what you're sending. If you're interviewing 100 candidates, but not getting any interviews, well, who are you interviewing? You're getting a lot of interviews, but nobody's getting offers. Okay, well, are you prepping your people well? So the metrics are there for the recruiter to gain experience and volume, because you need quantity and quality, but the metrics are also there, or should be there, for management to deep dive into areas where visibly there's obviously an issue.
It's kind of like quality versus quantity, which is more important.
And in our world, you kind of need a little of both.
Right.
Exactly. It's just like, I love football, as John knows. It's like defense. You're blitzing from all different angles. The whole goal, just think the quarterback's the candidate. You want to touch the quarterback, right? So you got to touch the candidate and engage somehow. So there's no wrong answer of all three avenues that we're talking about today. You just have to mix them up and see what works for you, right, John and Beth?
Use them all.
Absolutely.
Yep. Don't use one. Use them all.
And no fear at all. Just, I think the biggest thing we can agree on is don't spam everybody.
Agreed.
Mass emails. And me and Beth, we were in some groups and they're helped on, I'll say it, Zoom info and all these data things. So they get 200,000 contacts. They can send a blast out and see who's hiring. John, Beth, that doesn't work. Can we tell everybody out there that a blast email to clients? Because I have friends in HR and they're like, look at this. I'm even in their office last week and like, I got 7 emails from 7 different staffing firms that just says, I want to do business with you.
Yeah.
I don't
Really
know anything about it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not the bad players kind of ruin it for the good players. So keep it good.
Richard, Eric just asked you a question if the Patriots are going to be Super Bowl champions this year.
Oh, man. I tell you what. I can guarantee one thing. Tom Brady will be in the Super Bowl again. Is that all I'm saying?
I wouldn't bet against him.
You don't have to be a fortune teller to know that, right?
That's
Tom
right.
Brady.
There it is. And Chris summed it up too, man. Don't spam. I mean, these are things, and these are great people that's responding here that is so true to all of us. And even LinkedIn, as much as we love LinkedIn, John and Beth, you'll agree, I get probably about 20 to 30 spams a day of lead generation and all that over and over again.
The worst thing that can happen is someone reaches out to you very sincerely requesting to connect. And you know what I do? I don't connect with everybody on LinkedIn. I've got to look at your background and see if it makes sense for both of us to be connected. Yeah. And so you connect with them, and then the first message you get is a long sales pitch, and it's an immediate turnoff. Yeah. And it's like, if that's the first message you're sending me as a new connection, you've just lost me. It's like, if you want to do business with me, I had someone do this last week, which I fully embrace. It's taking LinkedIn to the next level. So this one person reached out to me and requested a connection, had a great personalized message. So I connected with him. His first message was, thanks for connecting. I'd like to set up 15 minutes so we can get to know each other on the phone a little bit better. Wonderful. That's that extra step that so many recruiters don't take. It's like, okay, I'll connect with you on LinkedIn, but then can I get you on the phone? Once you're connected, why not take 15 minutes to introduce yourself to that person, get to know them, and see how you can do business together? How can you help each other out? Again, using all of your mediums. The electronic might get that initial connection, but then follow it up with a phone call. Get to know them a little bit better. Yeah.
And when you connect with somebody, if I'm connecting with somebody on there, personalize it. Say hi to them.
Yes.
Say, have a great day. Here's my direct email. Not this connect. And I think that's what's happening. And hopefully LinkedIn stops us where you cannot connect. You just hit buttons. You have to at least say something. I mean, because it's like robots.
And there are some job boards that are so focused on the candidate experience now that if you are on those job boards and have access to their candidate database and you do mass email, it works against you. And and they penalize you and they give you less action on the job board, so to speak, or on the resume database. It's, again, re-emphasizing, you've got to personalize the message in some way, shape, or form to let that person know that it's them you're reaching out to, not 1,000 people.
Totally.
Eric summed it up. The voicemail on LinkedIn is so good. I mean, I love that when people
that's
do
pretty cool technology.
That's incredible. It's stuff like that. Once again, it comes down to one thing: the human connection, John. I mean, and Beth, it's the same thing over and over. We keep talking about it. Right. As much as we have all this technology out there, it's just simple things that are still going to get the candidate to engage with us.
We're still people.
So there is something to be said about old school sometimes, right?
There's
and
certain
we all
things
three are old school, right?
We're old school, but we adapt and we evolve with the business. But communication, having a conversation, that call it old school, but that's still has a place. It's still, people are people. They're humans. Whether we like it or not, innately, we are relationship-based creatures. So we want that connection. And for those that don't, I would say, well, then maybe I'm not the recruiter for you. And that's fine. Yeah. You go work with someone else who just wants to text you and doesn't want to talk with you. That's not me. But, that's part of the recruiter establishing their ground rules of what kind of business do I want to create and what do I want to be known as, and sticking to your guns and not being afraid to let those candidates go that might look really good on paper, but that don't want to put in the time to build that relationship and get to know each other. So it's a personal choice.
And that's the biggest thing ever: time and effort. Don't rush on anything. If you talk to 5 candidates a day and they all are great ones that you can put it out to work, that's better than talking to 50 and 45 are going to drop off. I mean, just remember that. Take numbers and steps. We lose weight in steps. We do everything in steps. We do this. Staffing's in steps too, right? You can't do it all at once.
Agreed.
All right, Johnny, any final thoughts?
We've had a great discussion today. Beth, it's been great having you on, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Just to reiterate, just kind of a summary, Richard, I'd say, the 3 main venues for communication, text, email, and phone. Don't just pick one. You've got to leverage all three of them where it makes sense. But regardless of which ones that you do use at any given point in time, just make sure that your outreach is targeted and personal, and don't be insensitive.
Right. And I agree with that, John, 100%. You have to remember the personalized touch in everything you do, whatever that means to you. And, it does take a little extra time, but you know what? It's kind of the quality versus quantity again. Put that quality time into something that you're doing, and I promise it'll pay off for you big time.
Well said.
Well said. And I'm just going to finish it up with what I always say: workforce family. Invite them to your family right off the bat. They'll be with you forever. Simple as that. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, hey, it's St. Patrick's Day, so enjoy yourself out there today. Celebrate whatever you do. Be safe out there if you're driving.
Absolutely.
And enjoy the Irish Green, right? And
That's
we'll
right.
see you next week. Yeah. Beth, once again, thank you so much. And Johnny, it's always a pleasure, buddy. We'll talk
Richard,
soon.
it's been great.
Bye, everyone.